guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave, episode 21. Today I'm going to be talking about a Nintendo game that I think everybody who has a Nintendo or likes Nintendo should probably play or own if you haven't already. Now before I get into that, I just want to show kind of like a little bit of a historical piece here where I talk about a game that was originally similar to it, and that would be Adventure on the Atari. Now when I played this game, it was recently, actually. I didn't have this game as a kid, and I was amazed that the Atari would have something like this. And what it is, you're going around completing a quest. It's not like a typical game where you're just getting as many points as possible until the game ends or you die. This, you actually had to complete a quest. And I would have thought this was cool if I had this as a kid, but unfortunately I didn't get it until much, much later on. But anyways, so it started with the Atari there. But when you get into the Nintendo, you had games like Zelda, and I had this game a little bit later after I owned a Nintendo. I had the Super Mario Brothers like everybody else did. I had Tetris, and I played a lot of those very simplified games. So when I got to play Zelda, I was kind of blown away by it. I was like, wow, this is it's different than your average game. You don't just play for one board. You don't just play until you die. You actually have to complete a quest. You actually have to save your game, your progress. You build up your character. You're going on this massive quest. Now, sure, there was games similar to it in a way that I might have had on the Commodore 64, but I mean, playing this really was, blew me away. So the game I want to actually talk about is not Zelda, of course, but Dragon Warrior. Now, this was my first real experience with an RPG-style game. So, and the funny thing is, again, I didn't have this game. I knew a friend, a couple of friends that had it, and I watched them play it, and I didn't really know what was going on. It wasn't until I was actually, in my teens, late teens, I was babysitting some kids, and they had a Nintendo there, and this game was one of the games, and I thought, well, let's give it a shot. I put it in the Nintendo. And I was quite hooked right from the get-go. So I just want to kind of talk about it and give my opinion on it and what I think of the game. So the first thing I want to actually bring up about this game is you have to like the grind. And what I mean by the grind is you start off very slow. You start off with one hit point or one experience point and no gold, no anything. You literally start off with just clothing on your back. And you have to get out there and you have to battle slimes, you have to battle all these little weak creatures because frankly you can't kill anything except these little slimes. And it's, it's fun at first. When you first pick up the game, it's fun. You're like, oh, I'm just going around, I'm killing these slimes. But after a while you realize you're not, you're getting like one experience point, one gold every time you kill a slime. And to get to the next level, it takes quite a bit of experience. And actually, you're building up your level, you're building up your experience, and when you get just enough, you can reach that next level, you get stronger. But this takes time, this takes dedication, and I'm telling you, you can't really go anywhere until you hit level 7, and that is what I call the grind, because it just takes a while to build it up. Once you get to that point, you can actually start to move on to more bigger, interesting characters. Like you start off killing slimes, there's these drakes, not the performer drake, but just these villains, or these enemies called drakes. Then you can advance onto like these ghosts, which kind of look silly. They look like your typical ghost with a funny hat on. And but then you get into much more meaner villains, like you get into the skeletons, you get into the wraths, you get into the golems, the magicians, and again, you get to a point where you got to keep grinding. You got to keep going out there, killing enemies, killing everything you can, building up your gold pile, and then you can actually go into towns. And it's important to go into the towns because you got to be able to speak to whoever you can speak to, and you got to remember to take notes because they really tell you how to advance in this game. They tell you how to get by, where you have to go. And some of the advice they give you is not going to help you until much, much later on in the game. So, if you're going to play a game like this, much like any other RPG, you're going to have to take notes. It's just the way you do it. So once you get to that point where you've pretty much leveled up, now the footage I'm showing you um, in the little square here is footage of me already being at, I think, level 20, 21 I'm at. And that was like, I'm like literally at the point where I'm ready to complete the game. So when I'm fighting things, like my blade is just killing anything that it touches, and it does take time, and it's basically 3-4 days of just playing this thing, unless you want to really dedicate a lot of hours into sitting there. That's up to you. But for me, it was more of a, every day I was playing a little bit and getting my character, and until I got bored, and so okay, I've done enough grinding at this point, and I'm just going to stop for today. But once I got to that point where I'm like, okay, now I feel like I'm at this high enough level. I got this. I bought all these. You could buy armor. You can buy weapons. You can increase your armor. You can get better armor. You can get better weapons. You eventually go into a cave where you have to fight a dragon, and the first time you hit this dragon, he pretty much kills you in one shot, and that's just the way they decide to do it. But you have to build up enough of your magic armor and stuff that you can actually handle a hit from him if you had to. And once you pass him, you save a princess. The game kind of goes to this state where you're like, okay, now what? And so really the whole concept is to get to the other castle, find the dragon warrior, and kill him. But it's fun as you're building up this quest and you're finding things, you're putting the pieces together, you're figuring out where you have to go. And I have to admit, I got lost a couple of times where I didn't know where to go, and I had to go on the internet at some point and start looking it up, because I was like, I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. I felt like I hit this brick wall where, I caught all the armor, I got everything I thought I had to need, and I was stuck. So, I mean, I'm glad I had that, but, back in the day, they had Nintendo Power. So, I'm sure a lot of people back then would have flipped open the book and found the answers there. So yeah, as you increase your power, you increase your gold, you increase everything, you're ready to take on the bigger characters in the game. You can pretty much take out the weaker ones, which also becomes kind of an annoyance, because it's a little bit tricky to get yourself from one point of the map, because every time you start the game, you start at the beginning, you start at the castle. And then you got to work your way up and around as far as you can get to wherever you're trying to go. And you've got to battle these little weenies all the way up there, which you pretty much take out with one shot. And they appear at random, so you can't really avoid them. Most of the time I would just try and hike it as far as I can and fight them off. And then when you get to the more complicated ones, because to advance, you have to get to the more complicated villains to be able to beat them. And you basically do that by crossing bridges. Every time you cross another bridge, the enemies get harder, and then they get harder and harder. And some of them actually have magic at this point. They can actually put you to sleep. They can stop your spells from happening. They can heal themselves, which becomes really annoying when you actually think you're about to kill the thing, and then it heals itself. But you get those powers too. As you progress, you get the ability to heal yourself. You get the ability to hurt them with magic. You can stop their spells. And probably the best one is sleep. If you manage to put them to sleep, they're just yours for the picking. The problem is you never know when they're going to wake up. They just kind of wake up whenever they want. So yeah, after I've got enough experience points, was able to defeat the game, essentially. Got to the end. I was able to kill the main boss. And I was done. I was like, okay, that was great. Am I going to play this over and over again is the question. And I think it's more or less, it's the type of game you kind of put away, and you hope you forget a lot of it when you come back to it. Kind of like Zelda. You kind of wait for a while before you go and play it again. But what Nintendo did was they came out with Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 on the Game Boy. And I really like what they did. Like, they put the two games on here, kind of updated the graphics a bit. And they modified the game to make it quicker and easier to play. So when you're playing the Dragon Warrior game, you actually, every time you kill a slime, you get a lot more experience points and gold points right off the bat. Also, the amount of experience you have to get to hit the next level they've changed that, so it's not as big a grind. You actually can complete this much faster than playing the Nintendo counterpart. And but it makes sense. I mean, it's for Game Boy. I guess they wanted to make it a little bit easier. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. I would like to know what you think of Dragon Warrior or any other game that's similar, because we do have other games. We do have Final Fantasy on the Nintendo. A lot of other RPG style games have come out since then, and I know it gets pretty intense. Me being a casual player, I don't really get too much into the RPG stuff. I don't play things like World of Warcraft, or I could not dedicate that much time. But I do have fun playing them from time to time, and I think that this is just a nice level of complexity for me, anyways. And I'm sure there's a lot of other, retro players out there who, even though you still enjoy the single board games, these kind of come along, and you just got to try them. You just got to play them. Anyways, hope you subscribe. Let me know what you think of the video. Talk to you later.